We're on air, okay, great. Welcome, everybody, to the work session meeting of the Orleans Board of Selectmen of July 15th, 2026. This will be a work session meeting, and it'll be followed at 4 o'clock by the regular Select Board meeting. If you are trying to watch this from home or in your car, you can get all the details you need on the website. And for this work session, we have in attendance Mary Wright, Select Board Member, Michael Herman, Select Board Member, and myself, Matt Runyon, our Town Manager, Kim Newman, Assistant Town Manager, Mark Reel, and Laura St. John Dupree, our Executive Assistant, and Molly Bates, our Executive Assistant. And so with that, I'll call this meeting to order. And first up is a review of the Human Services Advisory Committee charge. I'm not sure who wants to sort of walk us through this.
Wasn't in the meeting.
So there's a few attachments that are in the packet. I'm pulling them up now. Essentially, it's 3 documents. There's the original charge. The committee itself had put together a desired charge about a calendar year ago. And then there's some notes from an initial meeting that happened in the last 3 weeks in the packet. And that is in the shape of a red line of the charge that is on the books for the committee. So between those 3 documents, you have the original, the committee's preferred charge, and you have the red lines. Is there a question?
No.
Oh, sorry.
He was wondering if Alex was coming.
I don't think so.
Okay.
She's
I
available.
think we already did this, so that's fine.
There's also a memo in there that kind of just goes over what I just said. We also are joined by a couple members of the committee to provide insight that may be useful.
I'm wondering where are the materials for this meeting?
In the work session material folder, so it's in the select board folder, the main folder, and then there's a smaller folder, working session,
Okay.
it's by date.
May I ask a question? I haven't been able to find the materials, and we would like to see a copy before we discuss it. Is there a hard copy or some way we can see what the edited version is?
Let us work on that.
Yes,
Okay.
definitely.
I couldn't find the
I'm sort of
packet.
hunting at the moment myself.
Right,
Okay.
okay. So we need
You go into,
all of this wonderful material that Mike was just talking about.
That's right.
Yeah, we have copies. We can give you the old one and the new one, but we don't have your edited one.
We passed the packet out last meeting. That's why I still have it.
I wasn't at that meeting.
Okay.
are you in the SharePoint folder?
I am in it.
All right, so Orleans, the main folder, the red select board folder.
Yep.
And then there's this yellow folder for working session material, the last one.
Yep, I'm there.
And
And then
then,
the checklist and then the memo. Okay,
July,
yep.
yeah. All the number 2.
Proposed changes. Okay. Okay.
So the question is, can anybody
Print it?
print it?
Let's find out.
I can, I'll do it from my,
I can give him my copy. If that's
No.
helpful. Whatever you want to do.
I think it'd be, if we could print them out a copy, that would be good. Huh?
I'll print it, it'll just take a second.
I think it's, what we could talk about though, this process has been that the select board chair, vice chair, and the committee chair has met with staff to go over what has been proposed. The next step is that the select board as a whole meet to discuss what the proposed changes are. And the step after that was, in those discussions, was that from the working session, collecting all of the comments from the select board members, then that document is then shared with the committee members so that they can provide comments if they wish over the next 2 weeks, because what the process is that from the working session, the next meeting following that working session is when the select board is slated to take up the vote to actually implement the new charge. So that leaves at least 2 weeks for committee members to respond to select board for consideration. So that's why you haven't seen a red line version, because you don't want to send committee members something that actually ultimately changes at the working session.
Thank you, that's a great clarification. If there's a cover letter in there that goes over this timeline, we do want to avoid kind of dueling red lines, which we have seen in the past, which causes, believe it or not, even more confusion. So,
Sorry, I would just say, I think it's really confusing to work this way without paper copies in the working session. It's good to have the materials in advance, but having it would be so helpful to have all of it to work from. Especially for, when you're talking about text changes, like, we just need to print this packet essentially for whatever's on the workshop.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, not for the regular meetings, that's fine, but like this, where we're actually working and writing notes and.
I guess I would just ask the question about the process, if, because I think, unfortunately, Susan, I realize you and I had a conversation at the end of the last meeting, and it blanked, so I apologize for not sort of sharing this, but for us to discuss something that was reviewed, then we have a set of suggestions, but not shared with them before we talk about it, if they automatically have some real objections to it, it seems.
I know, but it might seem like that, but the reality of the situation is that staff is compiling data and possible changes for the select board to consider. They're just things, internal documents that we're working on at the time.
Okay.
They don't become official anything until they get to the entire board to discuss. You may see this and say, we don't like any of this, go back and do X, Y, and Z, right? Up until this point, so the first meeting is intended to be, much like they just said about process, the idea is that the staff liaison gets to come in and speak with the chair and I and feel very safe to share their observations of a committee over the year, right? And then the second one is we have the chair come in too and talk about some of those observations and maybe some of the changes we want to make. And then when we've had those conversations, which are not actionable, we bring that all to the board. So like Meth and I have been meeting with everyone, all of this material, like they've been putting together so it stays organized, even though it doesn't look like it right now. Like the timeline we're showing so that everyone can see that the process is the same for everyone, and that's how they'll be treated. So there's plenty of time between this workshop where you essentially are seeing it for the first time and discussing why, like you'd ask us, well, why this, why not that? And then that document, once you guys have said yes, no, maybe to any of it, then that's a public document, and then there's plenty of time for feedback from the committees. So otherwise, it's just us talking to the committees without any authorization from the select board. That's the process.
Okay.
And to Mike's point about, let's say we bring a draft to this committee, or to the select board, and half of it that we worked on is not appealing to the board, but we've already shared it with the committee to make comments on.
Right.
And then now, what's the result of the working session is something completely different, and now we have to send it again. We're just trying to minimize the confusion so that because this isn't, this example, as we move forward, there's gonna be a lot more of this, right?
Yep, no, I
So we're
get
trying
it.
to make sure that we keep it clear and concise and simple.
And with the reminder that this is to the advisory boards to the select board. So the main question that the board needs to be asking itself is, does this committee in its current charge, as is, serve a purpose that helps the select board do the business on behalf of the town? And that, like, some of these are outdated, antiquated, need to be updated technically, but other ones are does this still make sense since it was created in 1990? And what do you want that group to do so they know what their targeted objectives are to help you guys reach your goals, right?
Gotcha. Yep.
And so, and then ideally, your goals align with the comprehensive plan, and then so that what they're working on aligns with that, and that's how we tie it all together.
Okay.
May I just speak as an advocate for the committees? The thing that's just a little odd about this is I'm invited to a committee meeting. You all have already had a meeting ahead of time and evidently had
No,
edited things.
that's not true.
Yeah, the last time
we
you,
all have not
you
had
had
a
a
meeting.
version of the document that was not shared and still has not been shared, but you had seen it. And so it's just a little strange. I get that this is the select board's responsibility, you write the charge, and we behave as committee members. But it's just a little odd, and I think it would be a more inclusive process to put draft on it and share it with the committee members. And if we have some things to talk about, then we can suggest things. You're gonna write
I
it.
just want you to realize for 1 second that the draft version of it hasn't been seen by the select board either, at that version, and we cannot produce materials and send them out into
But
the
you have
world.
something you're just telling me is in the packet. We've not seen that.
It's right, this is the first time it's in their packet to see, so only 1 or 2 of the members would have seen any of this in advance at all until today, because it
Okay.
would have been technically a violation of open meeting law for us to be talking or doing anything with it until they meet as a group to see it and talk about it. I know, but that's, it's to prevent deliberation behind the scenes on all of it, so. That's what we're doing here in workshop form at 2:00 in the afternoon, right? Is it necessary? Is it over the top? Yes, but that's the world we live in,
But are
so.
you getting the best feedback from the committees if we're looking at it right now? I don't think so.
Well, this isn't the end of the
Well, you'll have time,
feedback.
right.
You have a
Feedback is
couple
just,
weeks.
the feedback opportunity is just beginning.
And we haven't even read it, so we have to read it now and
A
then.
couple of weeks worth of beginning is what, I think that's what Mark's
I
been.
think what the
Trying to say.
the point is that the select board needs to have an opportunity as an entire board to go through the recommended, what comes out of the pre-meetings, right? What you were at the meeting with us, right? We had those conversations. The entire board has not had an opportunity to have a discussion about the draft. So to have the committee actually have that draft and go over it before the select board does not
Makes
align
sense.
with the process that we should be following. So the process really is, the entire select board needs to have an opportunity to go through a workshop, discuss the draft, and then from that point, it should go to the committee for any comments that are necessary.
Okay.
Gotcha.
And the actual vote would be at a select board meeting 2 weeks from
Alright.
today. So that's the period of time that's the period of time that the committee has to go through it and see what,
And I understand it, just disagree with the inclusion levels of the committee, but please, go ahead.
so Mike, you were
Yes.
sort of.
Take us back, Mike, sorry.
So one of the documents in there is, we'll call it cover page or score sheet. It just has the dates of the meetings, kind of where we are, that just laid out. So this is that workshop discussion.
Okay.
Comments due by committee, anyone who's watching this workshop, back to the town manager's office by July 30th, for inclusion on August 5th. Next meeting of the select board. Looking at the actual charge, you tell me what you prefer as far as going line by line, if you want to ask questions. Most of this is a cleanup. There is not a large shift as far as what's in the initial, or the original charge and what came in through the notes. There are some differences between what the committee itself has suggested, and I think maybe this might be the place to start here, that there was initial discussion both with the staff liaison as well as the chair about changing the name of the committee from the Human Services Advisory Committee to the Health and Human Services Advisory Committee to align with the change in the division in the building. There is the Board of Health that covers most of the call them health topics for the health division. So following those two meetings, it did not seem to make sense here to change the name of the committee to the Health and Human Services Advisory Committee. So that might be a good place to start for discussion if there's interest in revisiting that, or at least having that discussion in this forum.
And document B is the one that has that different title than document C, right?
Yeah, that's the committee's proposed changes to their charge. It was put together in 25.
Okay.
I think it makes sense to be part of this packet because they did put it together, and it gives direct insight to what the entire committee would like to have seen in the charge.
But for tonight's meeting, are we going through document C?
I think you're going through all of it because it's feedback that's been provided over time. Not to belabor the point, the red line is simply
Yes,
the notes
Michael.
from meetings.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone through this in the last couple of weeks, because we did pass this out, and it hasn't really changed since last meeting. I know we didn't get to it.
It has not
right.
changed.
We didn't get to it last meeting, and
Are you taking input now from audience?
yeah, but let me finish first, if I could.
Okay.
I mean, I've gone through this, I think you guys did a great job in kind of merging the two things. I understand the separation between health and the human services, and that the health department we have an elected board of health, they handle the health. Just because this committee was handling human resources, it still will handle human resources. And in that human resources.
Human services.
Excuse me, sorry, her services, I apologize. Just to be really clear, even in the original charge, it has to do with mental health in there too. And I think that was one of the conversations that we've seen bubble up and become more prevalent and a need for. So even though it's still the Human Services Advisory Committee, mental health and certain issues will be in that committee's purview. If that makes sense. So, I mean, I think you did a good job in kind of condensing this down and making it more focused. So I don't have a lot of questions myself, but I would like to hear, once you guys have a time, either now or once you have a moment to digest this, to
Yeah,
send
okay, no,
us your
I'm
feedback.
reading the first sentence, I have a question about the first sentence. This says Human Services Advisory Committee is charged with reviewing funding requests from human service agencies. And actually, that's not the case, it's only nonprofit human service agencies, it's not all human service agencies. And so we kept putting in the language of nonprofits because we don't get information from, the Barnstable Human Services Agency.
Okay.
So I would have added nonprofit human service agencies, as was in our draft. Minor but important,
Okay.
I think. And I understand your point about the health and human services, and I'm glad you've added the behavioral health and other comments later on, so that's. I'm fine
And it was in the original charge too.
Yeah. Well, not addiction and behavioral health, we added those words.
Okay.
Mike, why don't you keep going down through it?
Okay. So the first paragraph is kind of just a cleanup, just to get that review language, removing the annual town meeting language as the budget has become, or the funding for this committee has moved to the annual budget cycle as opposed to a town meeting article where it had previously been.
Right.
So they are different in terms of how they are approved. They are equally transparent, as the budget is something that is reviewed in multiple meetings in the spring, as well as part of the town meeting article itself. So that's part of the cleanup there, as well as, kind of just jumping ahead to the next paragraph, removing the assistant town manager as the ex officio member, as it was discussed that may no longer be necessary. Going down to the third paragraph, the behavioral edit is there. It was in parentheses as kind of a note to myself to bring up as a desired change. If it felt that it was something that belonged, I think that's where it should be added. But it was something that came up in the discussions both with staff liaison and the chair that this is something the committee sees regularly as far as a need and the type of agencies that come in for funding requests. Looking at the fourth paragraph, again, looking to get the timeline to match up with the duties of the committee. There was some discussion about having a rolling application cycle as opposed to a hard deadline. And the hard deadline seemed to be the preference of those doing the work, so that was the kind of made target there, then moving, or removing the, any references to ex officio as well as the town meeting article direction for approval.
Could I suggest something here? Could we talk about maybe not including a date in the charge, and that be something that's set separately through guidelines of the committee, as opposed to having it built in here?
Where are you talking about, Mark?
It says the committee will review these recommendations with the Health and Human Service Director on or
Right.
before March 1st.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no,
I
that
think if
makes-
we just say,
yes.
will review
As
these.
set by,
Yeah.
as set by them.
Right.
Right.
That way it's not as,
Well, and quite honestly, that's pretty late in the budget process.
right.
I mean, by
I
the
think
time
we
we
need
get
a
to
little-
March 1st, we're, you know,
Yeah, we're done.
14 days away from public hearing on the budget.
But I don't think they're not talking about the budget, they're talking about applications
No,
that fit into the budget. that
No,
we've
I
already
know,
did.
but if they were going to base their funding request for that fiscal year,
It's already too late.
well, no, what I'm saying is, if we were considering a change to their budgetary amount for that year based upon applications or not, right? Or for the following year, like number would already be in the budget somewhere by March 1st.
Mhm.
So, and, you know, how much they're able to give is dependent on that. So, much like the CPC, which
Yeah, so
is,
they have to
yeah, I
manage.
would shift it forward if possible, but,
Well, I think if we just
right.
don't put the date, this is a longer lasting document without.
But it shouldn't be rolling though, so you
But-
gotta have a deadline
But,
set.
but even if it's not in the, even if we leave it out of the charge, that doesn't prevent them administratively from setting a date.
Correct.
So I guess that's the point. The CPC works somewhat the same
But
way.
it helps them reject late applications without having to hurt anybody's feelings too, right? Like,
Right, but we've
part of
got
it
the-
is like, people have gotta have their act together to
Yeah,
submit, and
I-
it's gotta be fair, so the deadline helps there.
Right, but
I
I
know.
think in our meeting we had together, we talked about how the charge is setting what the committee's doing. But outside of that, setting guidelines about the application process can happen, clarifying for potential applicants what types of funding projects could be applied for, and that deadline could be set by the committee in that process.
I think what we meant is that we get a budget, so we get 200,000, and then we're messing around with which agency gets what to the bottom line of 200,000. And that's what the March 1st deadline was, that it wasn't the whole thing, because that's already the budget in the department, right?
You're not,
So-
that's not setting the budget for March 1st, it's making sure your applications fit inside the budget, your recommendations. I
Right,
mean,
so
but that's gonna have to be done, I guess it was before you had to do it. CPC is a little different because we work on this set town meeting schedule where we have to have everything done so it can be submitted.
But this
with
is the
an
same,
article.
which is why this is sort of a
This is
gap.
a year behind. It's already been set for this year.
Well, so the applications that they're getting for funding, right, in March, technically aren't available until July, right, from that fiscal year. So there can't be an assumption March 1st that 200,000 or whatever number is the actual number. That can only actually be true once the budget has passed in May, right? Because changes can be made on the budget all the way up until town meeting, right? So that's, you know, which is very difficult because if people are waiting, other agencies are waiting on their basic assumption, but the reality, that's the truth, which is if something got changed on the floor and it got reduced, we would not have that money to give.
Right.
So, I mean,
But then they're gonna have to go back and shift every application.
I know, but that's the reality of the situation. I mean, because these are grants.
Right, but that's, I think the point is we're working on the charge. And the charge is that we're giving you the ability to set the guidelines and the deadlines based on the financial situation of the town. And all that other stuff that's going on is stuff that's happening because you have this charge. So I think taking the specific deadline out is correct, but with that understanding that it is set, you know, within the parameters, and I think you're fine.
I mean, I personally like having a deadline in there so that everybody gets to see what they need to work towards.
But I think that's in the procedures of putting in an application. That's, does not have to be in the charge.
No, it can, you're right,
To
it
the
can, but I
committee.
still think
Oh,
that.
no, nobody's
I-
disagreeing, but I just think it, because it could change, I think is the point.
Right, that's what I'm worried
And that's
about.
what,
Each year it changes, and then there's different things. And
No,
you-
well,
wait,
but
the
it's-
pa-
it's-
Well, this happens a bit, that people say, well, it used to be on this date, and now you guys have kind of changed it to this date. We were anticipating it was going to be then. But,
Well, what I learned at the last meeting, and I appreciate, is that the charge is sort of one thing, tells us our rules and regulations, but then we should probably write other things on the website that explain to the agencies what's going on, at least for that year.
Precisely.
And then, we can do that, and we can write something else. That was a very good suggestion, Mark, I appreciate that. And we'll do that and try to clarify it for the agencies that are reading about this. And what we did this year, which was different, is we said it was a rolling application, but we're gonna start looking at applications on whatever it was, January 1st or something.
Yes.
And it would be wise to get your application in early, because we only have so much money. And if you get it in even without a firm deadline, if it's too late, we've already distributed at least our recommended budget levels.
But the application itself is a place where a deadline should be clearly written. So you could change, which can change every year.
Right.
But for the year you're working in, you say it's March 1st, it goes on the application.
Depending upon funds available. I
It's-
mean, does it?
I don't think, no, it doesn't say that.
It, so
It should.
we have to look at that.
And
I
it
mean,
should, and if I may,
yes.
I just get worried that when we say we're gonna continuously update the webpage, and every year we're gonna check it, I hate to say, I hope that happens, but in my experience in the last 5 years, the web pages are not updated. The applications aren't updated in the time, and it gets confusing for people. So if you say you're gonna update it every year, I hope we do, and I hope we get it in time. Even these people who are historically, have been submitting applications for the last 5 years, and that we also update it as chairs changes, groups changes, people change. We don't let it slip through the cracks, because that's what I get worried about. And then an application doesn't come in, and somebody says, look, your date was done, you get it.
I don't think we're disagreeing. I think we're saying, yes, what I'm just trying to say is there's a distinction between the charge and the instructions for how the applications are done. And I understand that the structure by which the applications are done should be very specific and clear, and maybe they don't change every year, but that doesn't mean that, I think within the charge, we're saying you're to set it, the policy, and have it. But I don't know that we want to set the policy for how that happens every year in the charge. If we're trying to make a charge as something that is in perpetuity, when you're saying you are to set it, and that's your job, is to set it. So I guess I'm just trying to make that distinction, because I don't think we want to get into the weeds on some of this stuff in the charge. That's just my.
The charge is based on the town meeting approval of.
Okay, so that's my point, which is.
Okay.
Which is every year.
The funding available to this committee is just like any other item that's in the budget, right? It's totally contingent upon it passing successfully at town meeting, right? So whether you're
Right.
taking rolling applications till March 1st or May 1st, the reality of the situation is none of it is approved and funded until it passes at town meeting.
Right.
So the deadline doesn't really matter, right? Like, it's good to have a deadline, but the fact is that number can change up until May 7th
I
or
don't think I'm
whatever.
disagreeing.
Right, I'm just saying, like,
No, I'm just saying,
if I
I
was
don't
gonna
think
put
we're
something in the
disagreeing here.
charge, I would add something about contingent upon successful funding at annual town meeting.
This date is a date that was existing in the original charge based on getting together an article for town meeting.
Yes.
It has,
Right.
it doesn't actually impact what we're trying to do now. So
Correct.
that's why I'm saying, remove the date, because it doesn't
Okay.
actually apply to
Right.
what they're trying to do.
Right.
And evidently, people have stood up and said, I don't think this agency should be funded
Right,
on line item.
and, you
Yeah,
know.
that was
it's-
back in the warrant
Yeah,
days.
back in the days.
I mean,
Based
the
on-
the reality of the situation is the funding recommendation should come from previous applications, right? Average of previous applications funded, availability of funds, recommendation from the director to me about how much is available for that. And then once it's funded, this group vets the applications, right? That's the purpose, right? It's a third party.
That's
So,
fine.
right. But, you know, that's it. I mean, that is the purpose. So and having guidelines for that is important so that everyone's treated fairly. That's really the whole thing. So, but if that number were to change,
Just for this, to get sort of going on this, as I understand it, I mean, I agree with leaving the date out of the charge, but really what you're saying is that there should be language in the charge that reminds everybody that any grant awards are subject to approval at town meeting.
yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's, and putting that in the charge, I think makes
That's
sense.
fine.
Right, that's the whole thing, right? Which is, it wouldn't be fair for us, there's reasons why we really couldn't do it internally, that's why a committee like this exists, because the select board doesn't want to be vetting human service grants, which it could and give, but this is what their function is,
Right.
so.
So, in terms of this discussion, are we, what's the consensus on the, taking the date out of this?
It's fine.
Fine, doesn't
Okay,
matter.
so,
Moving to the numbered bullets, this is where you'd see more of the, I don't even want to call them substantive changes, but I'll say bigger changes here. The idea being, one, looking at the first bullet, that it is the Health and Human Services Director that this committee will be working most closely with. So there'll be more of a collaborative approach when it comes to a needs assessment, with the idea that the committee has a better idea of what the community needs as far as services that might be missing than staff would. So putting that more on a collaborative footing, that's the idea behind bullet one. Bullet two has been removed as the contracting piece is taken care of more between our office and town council. The third bullet removes the site visit, interview, documentation from the committee. We felt that, well, conflict of interest is probably a strong term there. We didn't want the committee doing outreach to their individual applications outside of open meeting law, so that's where that edit comes. And then last, again, working with the directly to Alex as the Health and Human Services Director, as opposed to directly to the select board, but leaving select board in there to be part of the report or reviewing. So the select board is kept in the loop, at least annually, where there's either reports to the select board saying, here's our grantees for the upcoming year, here's what the money was last year, and that, again, more of a collaborative footing between the committee and the director for that presentation. There'll probably be a piece for each there. I don't think you need to get into specifics in the charge, but that's the thinking behind this 1 through 4.
so,
Sorry. This monitor the delivery of contracted services, we don't want to do that. We don't think we should be doing that. That's kind of the contracting role or evaluative role. So I thought that we were taking that out. Monitor the delivery of contracted services through appropriate means to establish service quality and quantity. We don't monitor. I mean, we give out money based on what they tell us they're doing and can certainly ask to get feedback, but it's the contracting office that I think really is responsible for the monitoring of the service delivery. We don't do that. Right? Isn't that your job?
I think it just, if I may, it does say may also, so there may be a situation where there's some monitoring that the committee decides they want to be involved in just checking in with an applicant or a grantee about their service quality and quantity. It's not something you're tasked with doing necessarily,
But if it's in the charge and it's a may, there's sort of an assumption that that's kind of our responsibility, or could be our responsibility. And I think as a group of volunteers, it isn't our responsibility to be monitoring how an agency is really spending their money, or whether, somebody else should be doing that.
I'd agree with that.
Staff, right?
Maybe just adding, again, the Health and Human Services Director more broadly there, because that's who would be the quality control in this equation. It would not be the contract. And we can remove the whole thing, but if there's a grant, it's gonna be the department who's making sure the
Right.
grantee who says we're gonna do X actually does X. So we can either remove it or make that explicit that that goes to the director.
But they have to follow the application and what's on the application, right?
They as the grantee?
Yes.
Ideally, yes.
Yeah, I mean, we granting them based
Right.
on the information that they filled out. It should be in the application, and they're responsible themselves to follow what criteria.
But I think even with that comment, that it's on us, since we are giving an award, to make sure they do what they say they're gonna do. Just, that should be.
Well, that was my question, which is, are we actually monitoring that now? I'm gonna guess no. I'm gonna guess we're giving money and saying,
It's, and this is somewhat
Yes.
different from, the CPC does have a monitoring
Yeah.
function, because they have projects that have, points at which some funds are withheld and others are distributed. But in this case, it's one check that goes out July
Well,
2nd.
Actually, thank you for saying it that way. I know that the committee and the department have changed some of their procedures, because in years past, there was a quarterly evaluation that was done in paper. For some of these grants were a smaller dollar value, and the grantees were dissuaded from moving forward because the paperwork
too
was
much
so
paperwork,
onerous.
yeah.
That for $1,200 over a year, they were filling out paperwork 4 times. So I know the committee worked hard to remove some of that. So there is that check and balance. I think having something in here, and then, again, similar to the policies, this can be something that's done either by the department twice a year, or during the interview process. A lot of the times, from what I've seen, the questions come up of, what did you do last year, what are you gonna do next year? So there are
you should
checks,
handle
I
that
think,
in the form.
and then formalizing it, I think, makes sense.
Yeah, I guess my question is, there will probably be a time where the committee would want to ask the grantees, how are you evaluating your quality? I
Well,
mean,
that's in the question,
Right,
you asked that
right.
question.
So I'm just saying, so I think that's partly is, being sure that you feel comfortable asking those questions,
I
although
just don't like
this
the
is.
word monitor. We
this
do
is different.
evaluate because we ask how they've spent the money,
Right.
how you're going to spend the money, how have you spent the money, and then when we come back the next year, because 80% of the agencies have been here before.
Right.
So we ask them in the review process, but this sounds like it's kind of a more serious responsibility that somehow we as volunteers will be monitoring the way they're spending their money, which really, we don't have access to that information.
I think you're absolutely right, but this is the language that's in the charts now, and I think it needs to be directly tied, from this conversation, it's apparent, tied to the department.
In the old days, we had the procurement officer as our staffer. She was ex officio at all of our meetings. And I never knew quite what that was about, because again, we don't have that kind of expertise.
Next, Susan?
No, I think I'm done. I think this
Okay.
is very good, thank you.
The one thing that I think I just want to say, just as we're kicking this off, I think it would be wise, as we go through these charges, to standardize language in here when it comes to cadence of meetings, what to do with clerks' notes and so forth. So depending on where they currently serve.
Welcome
as well
Kevin
as-
Galligan to the meeting.
Hello.
240.
As well as where the makeup of the committee members are, that I think we'll try to have language just either at the bottom or not to diverge too much from where they currently are. Just says, this is what we do with notes, this is when we meet, and I think the language that we're looking at is meet as needed, no less than quarterly, no more than monthly for the most part. And that's where we're gonna land. I think some of them will meet twice a month, but I think from what we've heard so far with some of the committees is that there's a meeting for the sake of meeting, and we want to get away from
Yeah.
Yeah.
where we can.
I would just add an edit on that. I don't think that we should say the monthly part. I think we should say as needed, no less than quarterly.
Okay.
Because emergencies could come up. And like if we're gonna try to use this broad language for most of the committees, that they're gonna say, oh no, we can't meet and add it in a week, so like, let's just leave it out,
So for today's work, we've gone through this, there are some changes that you'll be making, Mike, and then when you've done that, you could forward that to the committee for their 2 weeks' worth of thought.
We promise we probably won't have a whole lot more input, but thank you very much for the opportunity.
And then you'll also, the select board will also get that updated version, and that's what we'll all be shooting for,
Bill, next,
final vote.
would you want to see a
Next.
clean or a red line or both for your, let's call it the August 5th packet?
I would say both, not to confuse things, but the clean one is really the best one to have.
Sorry.
The red line just sort of gives people a sense of what's been changed.
Okay, so we'll have an updated memo, an updated cover sheet, we'll have a red line and a clean version, it'll have gone to the committee, and perhaps we'll have 20 copies as we start next time.
The one thing to that point about the standardized language that every committee, commission, board should have, I guess I would like to see something in here that also references back to the comprehensive plan, that these goals and objectives and whatever, and I don't know the right phrasing, but does align with and is leading towards fulfilling the goals as outlined in the comprehensive plan. Because I really think that's an important, we really are trying to make that a overall.
So that's a comment for all the charters.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
More down,
So,
50 to go.
we have, on the agenda is, the next on the agenda is the
Thanks, Sue.
discuss committees for possible
English.
sunsetting. But Darren's here, so why don't we, I would suggest that we give him a break and
He doesn't need
let
a
him get his.
break.
I think
Well, he just had a break.
This is regular working time.
Well, you had a break, you didn't have to focus on this for 20 minutes.
It's the middle of the
That's
day,
45 minutes of not worrying about it.
but yes.
Is that okay with everybody, that we just
Fine.
let Darren come and do your, because you have 2 or 3 more policies that was left, that was,
You want me to present them right now, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, sure. There is quite a few, actually, I'll talk about this in a second. I'd like to concentrate on like the easier ones today, because there's some very complex ones.
so we're not gonna be getting through all of them today?
Well, do you want to? I mean, you'll probably be here until, no.
I'm just trying to,
Yeah.
because we're holding off,
We're anxious to be done with this, even though we've only just started. That's
And-
basically our vibe.
and we're holding off, not just for you, but for the financial policies, we're holding off till we're done with all of them before we forward them on to the select board for the final vote.
Yeah. And for me to make updates to the policies, so you have a final approved or version to go off of. So these are, really the intent is to kind of talk wave tops, like general recommendations as it relates to the policies. I do want to go back, so in the memorandum to the select board for this, do want to go back and just reiterate or rehash the June 24th meeting. There appeared to be good consensus behind the debt policy and general operating reserve recommendations. And I didn't feel like there was any counter consensus against that. There was consensus in support of the enterprise fund recommendations related to transparency, enterprise reporting, cost of service, retained earnings, indirect cost allocations, structural deficit reporting, capital planning, and use of certified retained earnings. However, there was not consensus, including a specific phase out of enterprise fund subsidies, particularly reducing the general fund tax levy subsidy for the transfer station. So the thought is, my recommendation is to the select board is that come back prior to the kickoff of the FY27 budget process and present, return with an analysis of cost recovery and subsidy off-ramp options for the select board to consider for the 3 enterprise funds, and also consider whether or not these funds, some of these funds, Beach being one, remain an enterprise fund if it can't fund its own capital.
I think that's the biggest question.
Yeah, well, in the discussion, I mean, there's seems to be some differences in opinion or differences in policy perspective on the transfer station and whether it should self-fund or should be subsidized by taxpayers. So the intent is that I'll come back prior to the budget kickoff so that we can have a conversation with that, talk about any structural budget deficits that we see in the funds themselves, the enterprise funds, and obviously have Rich here or Calvin here to talk about potential fee increases to stabilize those in the future, or maybe structurally change them.
But that discussion won't have anything to do with the policies that we will have sort of worked our way through now.
Like I said, I had placed some comments in there about phasing out subsidy, and so that could be removed in the interim, and just, you can approve it without the ramp off for subsidies, and we can come back and have a more detailed conversation about self-funding, elimination as an enterprise fund, all the different things that we should be thinking about. Okay.
Anybody?
Just one quick one, Darren, on the debt policy. I can
Yes.
send you just one edit on a little
Yeah.
different description on wastewater.
Okay, oh, that's right, yes.
If you can make that change,
That
that'd be
policy.
fine. Yeah. It's just the one line where Darren had said, the town's in the middle of large-scale sewer improvement program.
You wanted it to be.
I wanted to be a little bit, I sent you an email, so.
Yeah, I know,
Whatever.
but you want to say it out loud so it's a public comment.
Yeah, it's, advancing, I think was the word I said, our adaptive comprehensive wastewater management plan, just to kind of keep the same lingo going.
Because it's not really a sewer improvement plan. but-
Right, exactly.
Okay,
Or it could be, but
Would
we're
not
hoping,
be.
we're just putting it in.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's all I have. Thank you,
all
Mr.
right.
Chair.
Any questions or recommendations for those? I'm sorry.
I mean, I do want to keep that language in, but
Okay.
as long as if we're gonna make sure we review this at the beginning of the budget policy again, to discuss whether we're going to be phasing these out, or what the structure is gonna be, because I
This is the
think.
self-funding question.
Yeah, because I think just leaving it off, we're just winding to years down the road of the same old thing. I'm not, my position is I would like to see us endeavor to try as much as we can to phase out of these subsidies. I don't know if we're ever gonna 100% get there, but not trying and kind of keeping it out, it just keeps to roll year after year that we never really, we just go, okay, it's a shame, we should cut these subsidies down, or look at it and, well, just let it go this year. And I think there needs to be a trigger for us to challenge ourselves, to be constantly looking at what we subsidize, and is it something we can lower that subsidy to help the livability in the town, or not? And say, you know what, that's something we can't do right now, or don't feel that's the right thing to do at this point, or we're gonna move it to 3%. But I feel like I've seen over the years, it just kind of rolls by.
Right, and I think, I'm not sure exactly how we, continue this discussion, and I don't think it's today, but I don't think we have, because I know that I don't agree with the ambition of trying to make these, maybe
You
as
don't
an
agree with
aspiration.
reducing the subsidy?
I think that there are reasons why, like a partnership between the general fund and user fees is desirable, but that's not a discussion for today.
But I guess there's also the distinction between how we want to manage our money how we want to manage the particular situation versus I think part of your policies are, if we have an enterprise fund, the enterprise fund will behave in a certain way.
Yeah.
Which is a different discussion from, we believe that we should be changing the mixture between the general fund and the enterprise fund, which is a policy, or is a discussion based on current situation, as opposed to, if we have an enterprise fund, this is how we're supposed to behave, which I think is what the policies are doing. Am I right?
Yeah, but I do think the 2 points you just made are intermingled, right? It's because by subsidizing, you are stepping away from what an enterprise fund should be. And so I think that's part of the same.
Okay.
It's two different conversations, but they are interconnected.
Okay.
My recommendation is to leave it alone for another year. I mean, I hate to, it's not just kicking the can, but the reality of the situation is data is the thing that is helping us with these enterprise funds, right? And a couple more years operating in a way in which we're really setting our own limits about indirect costs or whatever, it's still discretionary to us, right? And we're not gonna solve it through a policy anyway, right? So, I think the public would appreciate us still having an enterprise fund policy that has guidelines in it, and I think, the rest of these are great, and I'm for all of this, so, I'm good. Good, excellent.
So where are we for today? Where does that leave us to do today?
I would, I mean, looking at all of these changes, this is great. I feel like we're ready to move on some of this. I don't see anything in here, I mean, I actually feel like the ones that are of most interest, we already talked about at our last public meeting in terms of stabilization levels and things, right? The rest is just modernization and guidelines and so that we're in compliance, so.
So,
And we can still, once that we clean up this year, we're gonna, you know, unlike some of the other policies we have, we discuss these policies every single year, right? They come up every year because they guide us when we form our budgets or our decisions. So it's not as if they're gonna sit on a shelf. These we are living.
No, I get that, I just want to make sure it's clear, I would like to, at the beginning of the budget process, to be revisiting this. I don't care what you put in for the language, because to me, that's not as important as that we're making sure we're revisiting these things on an annual basis, and we're making decisions based on current real-world data.
I think that's an already existing
Okay.
commitment that we've already made to come back already. I'm just kind of highlighting it because I think there's been a conversation about coming to the select board about the sustainability of the three enterprise funds and showing if there's a structural budget deficit issue with any of these, that we identify what it is through forecasting and look at how maybe fees would be modified or something else restructured to get it to a sustainable level. So I think that's will already happen. And then there could always be an additional policy discussion at the time, but yeah.
It's always gonna be a philosophical debate without an answer to it, because we're never gonna generate enough money, and we're never gonna raise the fees enough to really cover the debt of any one of those. So the question that you have to, when we have this conversation again, the question will really be about, in which of these do you think we can separate out where the fees make more sense tied to the use, like sewer versus the beach, which will never sustain itself if we're gonna be charging the same rates as our neighbors, right? Like, and then we have a huge capital, multi-million-dollar capital project coming up on the beach in just a couple of years. This issue is gonna be on the forefront about deciding how you determine what you charge and when, right? And if you would ever cover the costs of operating there. And, I don't know. I don't think that you will, but it's a bit, or do we, it's the same conversation we've had in the past about, well, should we consider it's free for residents, right? Like, it's a larger conversation we should have about our feelings about how we treat fees with the tax rate here. It's not just the black and white.
No, but I would agree with you, but I also think it's not just feelings and philosophy. I think these are our biggest revenue generator, other than real estate taxes. It's money, it's fungible, there can be things that are changed, services that are offered or not offered, that we can make these close the gap, if you will. So I think significant change can be made over the next few years. So, but not trying and just saying, well, we're kind of just stuck where we are, is not either. And I'm not saying you're saying that.
We just raised the fees.
We raised them minuscule, to, $2.50 for parking. That's not a.
I mean, I'm sure we'll be coming back with
Right.
fee discussion.
Right, the beach is gonna be a part of a lot of your conversations going forward.
So for what we're trying to do right now with policies, these we're talking about in your section, policies, in the E policies, E1, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, right?
Well, right now, what we're speaking specifically to is the enterprise fund policy, debt policy, and general operating reserve policy. Sounds like there's a consensus, I'm hearing a consensus, minus remove anything related to an off-ramp for subsidy of the tax levy, bring those back to the select board for final approval, and then come back before budget season to talk about the structural budget issues with all the enterprise funds. For those three specific ones, I think that sounds like
Yes.
we're there.
And I'm personally good with all the rest of these too, but I lived in it before.
Yeah, so
like
do you
with
want to
the
run
inputs.
us through quickly, just what we're approving?
So-
Oh, no, we're approving.
Right, but I mean, this is it, if we don't approve it now, it's going to a meeting to be voted, so. which ones are we talking about? Because I got a lot of stuff here in this package.
I was looking at focusing on just, right now, it's up to the select board, but the two that are pretty complex is the investment policy, short-term and long-term investment policies. I think they deserve maybe a more, a presentation if we're gonna make significant changes to them, other than the administrative recommendations that I've made in the packet. Because I mean, those are some complex changes. So I would prefer to talk E2, E3, and E6, and try to get those knocked out. Those are pretty simple, I think. The capital improvement plan and capital budget policy, the municipal self-insurance fund policy, and the acceptance of equipment and tangible personal property policy, just to get those done, if that suits the select board. Okay.
Move approval.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
We're not voting.
Well, we're voting to
To-
agree with them and
Those
pass
are
it along to the select board for the,
Right.
Which ones? Because I'm looking at this
you
sheet
were saying
here.
E2,
E2, is this the red line? Is there any changes here? Because we still have Board of Selectmen on here. And
Yeah.
which ones am I
That's up
looking
there.
at?
I need
He
to.
summarized all the changes right below the sheet you were looking at. So in his memo, if you scroll down, you'll see the changes he's recommending to the existing policy.
These are, yeah.
In the folder,
Yeah, E2.
nope, in the folder. Yeah,
That's the memo. I got the memo. That's,
then you just scroll down, it's below the memo.
Yeah, then I have extra, I have individual policy recommendations, recommend changes, the rationale behind each, and then below that is the administrative implementation changes, which does address your concerns about select board and really the basics, renaming the policies to be more accurate of current statute, replace board selectmen with town administrator with select board and town manager, assign the annual coordination to town manager, finance director, treasurer collector, and add definitions and calendars, review cycle, and update dates, just as a administrative updates to all these policies. So I hope that answers your question with that. But if you want to talk specific policies, or if you're accepting the recommendations, I would pull out the investment policies, other than the two investment policies that allow me to come back and present more in-depth on those, because those are very specific to your fiduciary responsibilities as a select board, and would want to make sure that we're all on the same page of what I'm making a recommendation for.
so just for keeping everybody on the same page, that would be E8 and E9 that we're holding back on.
Yeah. I think the others are,
The others are ready to go.
yeah. Okay.
So we're talking about E1, 2, 3,
E1?
excuse me, yeah, E1 is the budget policy, right?
It's in the notes of the policy. Sorry, I'll go back to this. It's all, he's right in front of me. Okay.
The only ones that were in the packet were 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10.
Second page of the budget, you'll see, E2 is capital improvement plan and capital budget. E3 municipal self-insurance fund policy recommendations. E6 is acceptance and equipment of tangible personal property policy recommendations. E7 use of ambulance reserve policy recommendations. E8 and E9 we would remove and for a later presentation, and E10 ambulance billing procedure recommendations are the ones that you would, so,
And E1 is the budget policy.
yes, from previous.
So in this category of policies, we're working with E1 through E11,
Except for.
and now we're gonna remove E8 and E9 from that, but the rest of them, I think, we're preparing to move on to the select board meeting for a final vote.
You can have a formal memo for you to, or
Not E1, right?
E1 should be one of the three policies that I.
Okay, so we're gonna hold out on E1, 8 and 9.
I mean, terms of the ease, I mean, I'm confused as to what numbers are.
The previous three
Yeah.
that you
Yes.
presented, plus E2, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so the three budgets, or three policies that we've already reviewed is the enterprise fund policy, the debt policy, and the general operating reserve policy recommendations. Those would be included with the other, 5 other policies that.
E2,
Yeah,
E3, E6,
E7 and E10.
E7, and
E10,
E10.
sorry,
No, that's fine.
yeah.
That's okay. I'm trying to keep up here.
Yeah.
And in terms of what we're gonna try to get through right now, could you just once again say what the numbers are, Kim, that we're
Sure.
passing
It's-
along?
It's the first three from the other day, and then E2, E3, E6, E7, and E10. You're just skipping 8 and 9, because those are investment policies. And not that I want to turn this into a larger discussion, but I do think people are interested in how we invest, so you
Yeah.
might want to talk to Scott. I mean,
Yeah.
he's done a presentation in the past.
That's exactly what I was
And I
think.
would, not super long, but
Yeah.
just 10, 15 minutes about how we invest money and how we've done the last couple of years.
Yeah.
I think people would appreciate that.
Yeah, that's the point. I want to bring
Yeah.
some staff here to be able to fully answer questions and talk through that. I
Because
did-
we got into a conversation about when we bought Tonsit, about how, like, what the interest rate return was and having that money sit in the bank versus buying a piece of property, and why we might consider other types of investments. And that's big on our priority list for this year, about finding ways to invest in other ways, so,
Which is another policy that's being,
yeah.
we're going to
Right.
develop, yeah,
So,
by the select board. Okay.
Is everybody clear about what we're passing on and what we're not passing on?
yes, everything but investment policies.
E8, E9.
Okay. Does that sit right with your motion there, Kevin?
Yes, please.
Did you second that, Mary?
I did.
So the motion's been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, so that's.
All right.
We've gotten made some progress.
Okay, all right, so now I owe you for the others. Thank you very much.
I think where we're getting confused on this sheet is that E2 isn't here
I know.
Yeah,
and E4 isn't here. But, okay, that's I
Right.
think the challenge, okay.
That's one of the ways I'm confused.
Yeah,
But
it's,
there's many.
Yeah, well,
Thank you, Darren. See you soon.
exactly.
So, next on the agenda was a discussion about what committees may be sunsetted. And who wants to lead this off?
I'll do it. So, we went through, all of the committees and had conversations about which ones exist, which ones are just on paper, and so some of this is strictly cleanup work, and some of it is gonna be about, recommending a replacement, right? Some is also, we heard rumblings of things that should be combined, but then are gonna be recommending that they don't be, right? So, the list that just the list that we have of ones that are inactive right now, so I'll just say the top of the list was the Affordable Housing Committee. And we had a lot of conversations the last 2 years about combining the two. We're no longer recommending that. We're recommending, we'll write it up, but we're recommending that they both stay intact and that we attempt to appoint the same members to both so they can provide dual functions. Along with that, and we'll have Elizabeth in here when we talk about the committees, part of that was also a creation of year-round housing trusts, but we're not there yet either. So basically, I'm saying we're doing anything around affordable housing,
Okay, so
which is a
affordable
big
housing.
change from what we had been discussing the last
Yeah.
couple of years. And that comes from discussions with staff and just general plans for the future. And volunteerism issues.
So then the committees that we're still considering
Next,
sunsetting.
so the Main Street Historic District Study Commission, the last time they met was March 2025, and that is no longer needed. So that's one that could be sunset. The next one is the Long Range Capital Planning Committee. This one has been a kind of a cluster since the day we formed it. We desperately need a different type of capital committee, and we are working on that. We will have one. So, but this committee hasn't been active since November of 2024. So this one could be sunset. We're also gonna be recommending the Personnel Advisory Board be changed. We're gonna have a Human Resource Advisory Board recommendation. That committee currently only has one member left, and they would like to be sunset. So we're working on a replacement for that. Another one that's on the books.
Can you just stop for one
Sure.
second? So we're gonna consider sunsetting the Personnel Advisory Board, knowing that we're working on creating,
Something
Something
different,
different.
Human Resource Advisory Board.
but
It's a
the
very
two aren't gonna be connected in terms of.
Right, and they're not gonna be bylaw charter driven, they're gonna be more functional actually in terms of feedback and what their purpose is. Right now, there's not a lot for them to do, and we could certainly use them. So there'll be a recommendation that comes with that, just so you know, because these are the ones we've talked about. The next one is the Post Sewer Hardscape Committee, hasn't met since May of '23. Then we have the Zoning Bylaw Task Force, and that hasn't met since October of '24. So those are the ones that we are aware of, that we are looking at. Some of, like I said, some of these will be replaced, with like transportation and bikeways, we're gonna recommend replacing that with some changes. So these are the current ones that we have on the list as we go through this process. Think of more, and then we'll discuss, well, in a formal recommendation when the time comes. Do you have any questions about any of these committees? More
Yeah, I guess that was the
Yeah.
point of today's meeting.
Right,
was
but any other committee you want us to look at, or?
On the first one, if I could, Mr. Chair, you mentioned the Main Street Historic District Commission. That actually came up at the Historic Commission meeting last week. They were given a charge by us, and they still want to fulfill it. And I'm looking at our agenda planner, and I don't think we want to sunset them until they come in and present their last report, because that was in the charge.
Okay.
So, and we don't want to end them, because I think there are some things that might continue, and Mike was there too, so.
Yeah, if I could just jump in on that, we had talked about either including them on this conversation today or not, for that very reason. I know you both were at that meeting. He had presented the report in it's called a preliminary report, but it was in its final status back March of last year. That presentation has happened, there was no action taken at that time. So the commission's discussion was to revisit taking action on that report. So I've written something up, I think it might just make sense to wait for the commission to make that presentation, and then the district's work has been completed as far as what the study was set out to do, it's just what the next steps are. So I think it's just a process there.
So we'll hold that one out and advance the other four?
Well, we're gonna hold out on all of them essentially until there's a replacement recommendation for something that goes with it, so that it's a full package. This is just to sort of start a conversation publicly about committees that we have been discussing that may or may not still function, right? So there might be other ones, but this is what we've got, right? So there won't be anything to do immediately with this list. Just, you'll know it when you see it, when it comes in as a recommendation from something else. But there are other ones, I mean, you have all been here a lot longer than me, so.
But for now, this isn't gonna move up to a regular select board meeting?
No, but you'll see recommendations with these things when we actually bring in the replacement thing. So like, that we wouldn't sunset, we can't just sunset Personnel Advisory Board. We would come in with a memo that says, we did this, we researched this is why we think this is a better replacement for this, and then part of your action would be to sunset that committee and then do the other one. So.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that, other than the ZBA task force, I think with the discussion we had was that George was of the feeling that the planning board can sort of take care of that on their own. They don't need to have a separate committee to do that. So is everybody okay with where we're there, where we're at on those.
Yep.
And then the next item is our goals.
All right.
Um,
I brought this book with me today so that as we're going through, we can tie them like a exercise, like a class assignment, so we can match our goals to our comprehensive plan.
So we spent some time yesterday trying to organize the fiscal year 26 goals with the fiscal year 27 suggestions, with the status of the prior goals as of May. And I'll put this on the screen to help talk through it. With the idea that we wanted to have a roadmap of where we were, where we're going, and then a specific column for where the goals might, or where they do intersect with the comprehensive plan. That's not great to see. It's a tough one to have this meeting in.
Right.
You wanna plug into this and?
That's better.
Yeah.
No, I mean, they have printouts too.
You should have the PDF printed, there's an Excel in the folder, so we can at least start through it. For the most part, we kept the structure from last year, and we kept, I don't want to put a percentage of, but certainly the majority of the goals as they were written, or at least the bones of them. So there are 6 different categories: organizational, fiscal management, infrastructure, education, environmental sustainability, quality of life, and then the last is just to ensure the goals are reviewed on a quarterly basis.
And if I could just jump in, one of the discussions on this too was to try to make the goals that we're talking about now very brief, and not get on the goal sheet ideas about how things should get done, that the select board is gonna agree on goals, most of which the accomplishment would be staff to figure out how to do them, and they don't need to be in the goal sheet, the how to do it part.
So just using 1A as the example, this was a goal that majority of it was present in the fiscal year 26. The status is of May 6th, which is listed as ongoing. I didn't touch the status as the sheet previously had them listed. In this Orleans 2050 reference, this is where we'll work over the next couple of weeks on basically doing a citation for the comprehensive plan, so the select board goals can directly tie to the comprehensive plan. And just any further notes that need to go here, I think we could do that in the Excel document, or if it's handwritten in the PDF that you have. But I mean, that's as far as table setting. I think that's a good background. As Matt French mentioned, the idea was to have a high-level discussion on, or high-level goals with the specific and/or the tactics left out. There is an assessment list, which I got from the facilities assessment consultant today, from kind of the finals facility list. So we have, I think, 63 or 64 facilities listed on there, so we can use that when it says see facility report as a starting point for, hey, how do we want to prioritize these? We've at least got that. I just got that a little before the meeting, so that is not part of the packet. I can put it on the screen, or I can drop it into that folder, because I think we'll probably be talking about this more than just today.
Matt, do you want to go through? Most of these are the same. I mean, we went back and added any from the ones that you had submitted that weren't on here, or we marked where they already were recognized. There were very few outliers.
Yeah, I don't know that if you want to try to do that, go through these, what would the committee like to do?
I mean, I'd like to go through them
Okay.
and find out which members wanted these, and are they still relevant, or are we, you know?
Right, this is what the workshop is for.
Yeah, exactly.
Mike has talked about 1A and B. Do you want to start there or just move right into 2?
I mean, I can speak for myself, 1A is fine, that's just the continuation for me. 1B, strengthen the advocacy for compliance and, let's see, long-term registration, animal control, no use bylaws, drought restrictions, signage, outdoor lighting, fertilizer and pesticides. Yeah, I mean, I agree, I like this idea of tying it back to the comprehensive plan, but that's not in the charge. That our select board, annual select board goals are not tied to the comprehensive plan. So I think if we can, that's nice to do, and we should, and I think they'll all fit. I don't see how you can, with the comprehensive plan, you can almost fit anything in there and tie it to it, but I don't want to restrict us in our goals. So,
I think it'd be hard to come up with a goal that couldn't be tied back.
yeah, exactly.
So.
But I guess I guess the point of having the plan was because, I mean, that's something that, we put together to be a guiding document.
Yeah.
So I think it's, it's important to have this, and I guess I would say as part of this organizational, I'm not sure where that fits, but I think, I'd like to, I'm not sure if it goes here, but sort of the whole volunteer experience. I mean, this is talking very administratively, that we're doing everything to the open meeting law and all that kind of stuff, but I really think that there's a lot of, how is it that we are, and I know training is for dogs and education is for people, but how are we making it so that people are having a good experience being a volunteer for the town? And I'm not sure that that's quite the way that's worded, but I think that there's and I know we've been making a lot of strides around recognition and collegiality and all that, but I think I'd like to have that as somehow being a little specific about making that volunteer experience, of value to them as well as of value to the town.
So, Mr. Chair, just to kind of get
Yep.
a little movement here, rather than have us go through the comp plan, I just took the first one and echoed what Mary suggested in terms of volunteers, and it comes right up on page 143 of the comp plan. So it's there. I don't think we need to do that on all 17 or 18 of them, whatever, but that could be just a little work test someone could do.
I'll take the lead on that, Mary. I'm gonna lean on you just from being on the planning board and
Yep.
where there's questions, or I think we'll probably hit points where it's on multiple points in the
Yeah.
plan. So if
Perfect.
there's one that,
I think that's great.
But just as an example, you could just say, see page 143. It's
Would
there.
it be helpful if I read through them? I'm a person who likes order for these goals. And yes, Kevin, that's exactly right. So if I'm reading them, then you guys can be thinking about them, right? And then you'll be able to feel what's missing, that's sort of the, and some of this is a carryover, right? Like, I'll do the administrative part so that you can.
Yeah. I
All
mean,
right.
and you know who put these in here.
So the majority of these are from last year. There aren't many changes. There's only maybe 3 or 4 new additions. These are the carryovers. So fiscal management, manage town assets through timely investments while continuing to maintain a AAA bond rating, leverage facility assessment report and create an inventory list to prioritize facilities projects. See facilities list. So the change there was leveraging the facilities assessment report, and then what Mike had just previously mentioned about creating an inventory list to prioritize projects off of that list.
Do we have that list?
yeah,
Not-
I'll pull it up now.
Yeah, we are just getting it, yes.
And they can send it to us.
Yeah, well, we're gonna include it. The next one, explore affordability options, prepare a report outlining prioritized options, possible recommendations, and preferred next steps.
That's huge.
What is that?
I mean, if I'm interpreting it correctly.
So this
That's
is
fine.
the way in which we put together a comprehensive list of all of the ways in which we offer things that make living here more affordable, like
Right.
tax abatement programs, or regular exploration of RTE,
Yep.
or it's the select board's commitment to continue to explore affordability options.
Yep.
So maybe we need to be more specific
Universal
about.
pre-K, all that kind
Yeah,
of
I
stuff.
think,
Yes.
I think we need some
But,
details.
no, but not on here. I mean,
Well-
the point is,
It's
the
very.
the details
But
aren't
these
in
are,
here.
these are annual goals, so we need some things that we're gonna actually do annually. Just the overarching, putting stuff in is great, but
But that's how you're measuring whether or not we,
I know, but I think we
Did
need
it.
some details.
no, but I'm just saying, some of these, there's always that problem between
Right.
the details and how we're
So,
measuring
so when
success.
you talk about,
This is a
updating,
procedure we should be doing all the time.
Right.
I don't
and
see it as an-
is-
I don't see it as
and
an
it's
annual
under
goal.
fiscal management.
Right.
Pre-K is under quality of life at 6C, right? So the
well, it's in both, I mean, it should be in.
right, because the affordability part is, this used to say tax burden. We didn't like that connotation because it seemed negative, so this is a carryover again from last year about looking for ways in order to ease the tax burden on year-round residents. So this is just verbiage, okay, that we can work on, okay? 2C, support long-term capital planning based on facility assessment findings with clearly defined responsibilities and accountability measures.
What
That's
does,
pretty,
what does support mean? Is that saying that, I don't know what support,
well,
These are suggestions for the work.
So-
This is,
Yeah.
the results will come back, the town manager creates the capital plan,
right?
right?
Yep.
And the board supports the plan.
Okay, that's fine, if that's what that means, that's
Right.
fine. Yeah.
This is basically adding the language that our data is gonna come from the facilities assessment, right? And it's not, it's gonna be the baseline. 2D, continue to explore strategic and targeted investments in current and future community assets. Establish and utilize a land acquisition policy. This is sort of what Darren and I were just mentioning too about investments, and what we were talking about last year. 2E, continue a comprehensive review of enterprise fund performance to balance service delivery, fee equity, taxpayer impact. This is what we just talked about, right? 2F, beaches are recognized as the leading driver of economic development. Analyze license plate recognition and sticker data and improve mobile services, long-term retreat planning and facility services, right? Beach services. Transfer station, advanced food and leaf composting coordination with the BOH and increase annual grant program. Document the annual percentage of solid waste reduction and analyze user data, continue improving waste reduction and efficiency efforts. Explore pay, save as you throw options. 2H, advance the Governor Prince project. That's pretty straightforward. 2I, explore town-owned properties for potential uses, including the former Hubler Motel, Gavigan Cottages, Bay Ridge Lane, 44 Main Street. For all properties, leverage the facilities assessment report.
This is one I had pulled out as 44 Main Street that I think you guys all heard me many times before. I'd love to get this pulled out. I mean, we've already put it in our CIP. Going on now 14 years of discussing this, and even during a housing crisis, I appreciate, I don't want to get into a whole long discussion on it. We've got the Governor Prince, but we have nothing in the pipeline of other projects, of smaller projects. And this hits all of the buttons between economic development, the redistricting overlay of downtown, of affordable housing, of community space, and it just keeps going on and on and on, mixed in. And I guess for me, it's challenging because we've had these discussions for 6 years now on the Gavigan Cottages, Bay Ridge Lane, and 44 Main Street. And I'd love to see us kind of finally asking the Affordable Housing Trust to move this forward. We've already gone to town meeting and raised money on it, but it's still here.
I don't know, to your point, it's 12 years old.
Well, it is.
I think we need to re-examine that project in context with all of the projects that we are about to do facilities assessment on and see where we are in terms of needs. I don't know that we're ready to move on affordable housing on the 44 Main Street, but we are doing the work in the background in case we are. It's just one of the many, right? Look at, there's the list. And so, I mean, if the board feels strongly that this is the year that 44 Main Street gets prioritized and completed through town meeting, then that is certainly your purview to say so.
Yeah, this is the year that we have it on the CIP. This is the year, I mean, we gotta get one of these projects moving forward, and it's just getting kicked down the road constantly. It was the whole point of what I thought we did a downtown overlay, to build a walkable, thriving downtown. And this hits every single metrics and button, and it's smaller, it can be workforce housing, it's 6 units, it can give us community space, economic development with the chamber there. I just feel like it gets wrapped up, and every time we discuss it, it's just pushed down the road, and now we have a bigger list. We're never getting to all this list, not for a long time. So that's my comment on that one.
Anyone else? On 44 Main? Personally, I know where Michael's coming from, and I'm not totally opposed to it, but what I was really not sure where we're at in the town is I'm not sure I'm prepared to single the priority of all the various facility and infrastructure needs in town. I don't know that I would be ready right now to make 44 Main number one. And pulling it out into its own category kind of is doing that.
Didn't we do that with the CIP?
Well, the CIP is,
None of these other projects are on the
as
CIP.
everyone knows, what's in the CIP is just the planning.
No, not the 5-year, the current year we just voted on. Not the planning document part of the CIP. So, listen, that's fine, and we can think about it, we're not voting it this tonight. I'm just saying, there's one of these projects in here, and I can always find an excuse to the next thing we gotta look at and analyze more of properties and say, what's a potential. Housing is a crisis. We know that, we know that, we know that. There is nothing on the deck that we have other than the Governor Prince, which is a mega project. It's gonna take time, it's already in here in its own, we're going to support it, we're going to move it through. But if we don't have things in the pipeline, I'm shocked, and one of the biggest things is of course, the housing crisis. And we talk about it, and I think we need to look at the options and actually finally make a step forward. So,
Well, does the Affordable Housing Trust and the committee have projects in the pipeline? I think they do.
not really. Not any projects where we own the land. You can tell me, the time I was on it for the years, Governor Prince is the last project. We have a commitment of a housing that we've approved, 150 affordable units. I don't think we have more than 4 or 5 in the last 3 or 4 years that we've done. So we've got about 140 units in 7 years left, or 8 years left. I don't know where we're getting that, and then there's 200 units of regular housing. I think we all know that, and Governor Prince doesn't count in those numbers, because that went to the last 10-year study, the goals. So we gotta, if we're gonna ever come close to working towards that, we better get some projects working, and this hits, again, all the buttons. We own the land already. So I would ask them too, do we have any, where are we with the account, do you know? I know you're just freshly there,
I do
so.
not.
I mean, I think the question.
But we have a meeting tomorrow night.
Right, I mean, the question, this is about the select board's goals,
Yeah,
right? And we, the staff, need clear direction from the select board about the projects and the things that you would like us to work on in this next year, right? It doesn't look good for us when this conversation occurs every year about it's not going anywhere, it's been 12 years. But the reality of the situation is, it hasn't been advanced in any particular way strongly by this board. We did put it in the CIP because it's been discussed by this board.
It's
but
been
no
on
di-
our, it's been on our goals for the
Okay, but
last 3
that
years.
doesn't mean that it's an actionable item that this board has said, move forward with.
I think
So-
we did. We put it on our goals the last 3 years
Okay,
as a standalone item.
Okay, well, maybe the select board needs to have a conversation about this
Yeah,
project,
yeah, yeah.
right? Because this, discussions like this, we have done the behind-the-scenes work, we've done the surveys, we have put it in the CIP, potentially for funding, right? But the board has to lead on what it wants to do, right? And that would help us tremendously,
Yeah, it's not,
right?
and no saying that this is staff responsibility, but I assumed we had it on the goals of, if we look back on year 2024, 25, 26, and 27. You know, and it's on there. And I don't know what more than can we do to say it's something we all agreed on, to put on our goals, and we're still not moving it forward. It just kind of, maybe it's a separate discussion. When we get these goals and we don't move them forward, what's the, not the point, but
Correct.
No, but that's why I was saying is, so what's the measurable, some of these are, for each of these, there needs to be a plan which says, then we are, sort of exploring is fascinating, but that means, well, in order to explore it, in the next 3 months, we have to have decided, is there really a project here and who would do that? Or whatever it is, but there has to be the next step, which says this is what we're gonna do, and then we decide again, is this a go-ahead or no, we're not gonna do this? Because it's okay, goals are great and they're important to have. They're also important to evaluate. I know there's a thing where it's talking about evaluating it. So that's fine to say, no, this one can't be done this year because we decided that, challenging something else was gonna be a much better use of our time. So to Mep's point, there's all kinds of stuff that we're looking at. So I think if there are, if we choose 4 major projects that we're saying, and I'm making this up as I go along, but there are 4 major projects we really want to see happen, that's great, then each of us has to be responsible for coming and saying, this is how we would do it, and then, we look to Kim and say, okay, well, this will cost $5 million, and she says, that's fascinating. You have 29 cents to do this, then we have to go back and say, okay, to do the 29 cents, this is what we're gonna do. And that's okay to then be able to say, okay, and this year we've decided, we've recognized we cannot do this year. And what are the ramifications of that decision? And that's fine. I mean, we're all gonna be disappointed because if wishes were horses, this would be great. But I think I think we just have to be more realistic or more procedural in saying, this is what we think we should do, and then we have to say, okay, in 2 months, we've decided, no, we're really gonna categorize one of these over another.
And, we're just using 44 Main Street as the example here, but the reality is, a lot of these projects they're nice to-dos, they're not have-to-dos, and I think we're sitting on the cusp of getting a substantial bill of have-to-dos, and so I am reluctant to do exploratory projects. I would feel a lot more comfortable if the Affordable Housing Trust was in here telling us they want to partner on this and there's a plan, and I would feel way more comfortable and that it's still needed, right? And same with any of these, right? I just don't know how we justify it if we find out in another month that we have $300 million worth of repair costs. And then the board has tough decisions to make, and you have to go through the list that Mike is preparing about prioritization. And that's the point of just putting them all in one group here, which is every year there are different variables. The financial situation here has changed quite a bit in 3 years. The housing market has changed quite a bit. I'd love to see those more attainable year-round housing, right? Like, things change every year, right? So the board ultimately has to decide, because otherwise, like I already said, it gets hung on us, right? And it's not from lack of wanting to do. If you want to do it, we will do it, but we need clear direction.
And I think that's a fair statement, and it's a fair statement that we need to give clear direction to the Affordable Housing Trust. If this is on our goals, and this has been on our goals for 3 to 4 years, it's something we want worked on when regarding housing.
And that's fair, but I would say that this also goes back to a number of, what are the charges? This gets back to the charge discussion, right? Of what are we asking our committees to do to give us information? And how is it that we get from them, here's how you could do it, here's our recommendation, and there may end up having to be some discussion of, wastewater management's gonna come back, I'm sure, with a variety of things that need to get done. And affordable housing is gonna say that, and that's gonna be for us to decide, again, to that prioritization. But
Yeah,
Kim, I
they
certainly.
do say that. We have
that's fine.
discussed this with affordable housing for many years.
And that's-
This is
that's
not,
fine.
this is not a new topic.
No, but I'm just saying but it's new to me, so
Right,
now I can do my thing, and that's fine. But Kim, I certainly hear you on this facilities report, because I know we've been anxiously waiting for this facilities report, because it's affected all the committees that I've worked on, as we've been wondering, well, gee, but there's a big shoe that may drop very soon. And so I think I can see that's gonna be a discussion for us as we say, okay, here's the stuff that just is like, it's sort of like in your own home, we all had these great views, we wanted to redo our kitchen, but the problem is the roof has to be repaired. So I mean, it's that kind of, I think I'm seeing that those are the kinds of discussions that we're gonna have to have here, again, because of the affordability issue as well.
Exactly.
So, yes, we would love to be able to do all the things we think are wonderful or important, but you gotta kind of do the basis
And we
first.
just passed one that is big and wonderful and necessary. So, a lot of times decisions are more than just, timing is everything. And we absolutely want to be sensitive to what we're asking people to pay for, while we're still investing strategically in the future.
Yep.
It's a balance, right? That's why not everybody signs up to do it, right?
If I could, real quickly, later on the select board agenda, 22 Old Tow Road is a topic. And that was used as with the Affordable Housing Trust as, I don't call it a blueprint, but it's a possible model for 44 Main Street. So that's a project we're still working through, where the town owned a piece of land and considered having a developer come in and do a project and do our transfer. So as it's on the agenda later this evening, that might be a good point. Elizabeth will be here to talk about that project, where it is, if there's any parallels between the two.
Great. Okay, on to infrastructure. 3A, sewer, support the work of the wastewater management advisory committee, recommendation including implementation of the CWRMP phases. Yes? 3B, continue to work with the town of Eastham leaders to explore creation of watershed permit for Nauset Estuary and Rock Harbor, consistent with new Mass DEP regulations. Yes?
I would say it's important, Ms. Chair, that we do keep this here, because as folks may be aware, there's a draft petition circulating that might force this issue, that it would be nice for us to say, we have a plan, this is it, and thank you.
Are you talking about 3A or 3B right now?
I'm Dr. 3B.
3C, fire rescue, advance the new station design and continue to support the project through design and construction. That's 3D, complete the wayfinding signage program. That's happening.
The only one I would add to there is digital. And I know we talked about it last time, to making sure it ties with digital. I appreciate everybody's need to have printed signs and put up wooden signs in Main Street. I believe as I've said this multiple times, everybody under 60 or 50 is using their phone to travel, either Waze
Yes.
or Google Maps. They're not stopping and following street signs downtown. They're getting to places digitally. So I think it looks really pretty and it's nice and it's charming, and we should have that for people who are walking, but we gotta really call out all of these amazing places we have in town digitally. And when I drive in town, I see commercial businesses doing it better than we do it ourselves as a town. Does that make sense? So just that wayfinding isn't anymore just signage, a physical signage. Wayfinding, the majority of the younger generations and our visitors who are not here year-round
Okay.
are using digital.
But this was a specific program
But,
that.
well-
I mean, it's been going on so long that the digital age has kind of passed it by.
But it's kind of almost at completion, so.
But to Michael's, one of his submissions about adding signage, right, indigenous signage, did you mean
No,
like?
that's different, but go ahead.
No, but in the same vein, right, like adding more signage in places for attractions?
Yes.
Yes,
I don't,
it's-
you want me to explain that now?
Sure, because I was
Okay.
trying to figure out, I mean, it's quality of life, but I think you're right, maybe we need to expand wayfind, to like signage to increase permanent information to attract
Yeah,
and educate,
Yeah.
like maybe that's the actual bullet, not wayfinding.
And it was
It's-
kind of a combination of this with historic and
Right.
cultural and business development. You know, we have so many unique things that have happened in this town, in unique places. When I travel quite a bit, and I was just in a place a couple weeks ago, and there's a 4-foot statue of a mermaid that's 25 minutes outside this city that people walk to, up to 1 to 5 million people a year go to this thing, and it's outside of Copenhagen, it's called the Little Mermaid. It is the most, it's fine, but it's not that exciting, but it drives millions of
dare
people
you.
there because they want, I shouldn't say that, Copenhagen actually is one of my
Okay,
favorite cities,
so-
great city, but all I'm saying, let me finish it. We have so much unique, authentic history here. We built Rock Harbor, and shame on me, and shame on us, we didn't decide to put a statue or design something there.
You will.
Whether it's the Battle of Rock Harbor, which was a very unique thing, which people from around the world or United States would actually go there. And I don't mean just we've done a good job, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago when we did plaques, but people don't go stand in front of a plaque. And I think we need to kind of look at these authentic things, whether it's the Pendleton, whether it's the French cable station, that are really unique around town. And why we built Nauset Beach and that entrance, we didn't do some kind of, I don't know, recognition to the Nauset community that was here before. Why isn't it the boat that was sunk out there? There's no kind of monument at Nauset Beach, you know? I just think I'd love to see our historical commission, our cultural, working together, and I love the artwork that's put up around town, and it's kind of maritime-esque personally, and seeing a sail or oars or something like that, it's nice, but it's kind of generic. When we have actually authentic things that were historical things that happened in this town, and we should probably get it back. So, you know, Nauset Beach could be, it's where these eyeballs are gonna be. The most people that travel to Orleans go to Nauset Beach.
Can I just jump in here, because it seems to me as if the goal you're trying to describe is to better promote the town of Orleans.
Through our unique,
Right.
authentic history.
Okay, but stopping there, I think getting into the details of whether it's gonna be statues at Rock Harbor or plaques or whatever, that's not for the
That's-
goal.
Kim wasn't sure what I was trying to explain, so what I was trying to explain is that's what I was meaning by it. And also the rotary we have in front of the Lost Dog. You guys must get as many complaints as I do about the look of that rotary. It would have been nice if we had thought.
Oh, not that rotary, I don't
Yeah.
get complaints about.
Okay. And I did put into Mark's comments on the fire station, I think now's the time when we build these things to have them involved with our architects and landscape designers
Okay.
thinking about.
I think I picked up two
Okay.
things there.
Just two?
No, I do,
I also wrote it all out.
no, but for the select board's goals, I think we changed this 3D, Mike, to complete wayfinding science program and explore ways to increase informational and educational signage / markers. Right, that's
Through our
just,
unique history.
well, but we'll know that
Okay,
one.
okay.
And then I think, you're right, I think somewhere in here, the select board should make a commitment to investing in public art. Right, that's not anywhere in here, and I think, you know, if that means putting it.
Historical in here or cultural.
Right, well, then we could add a bullet under quality of life about the select board committing to support public art, historical, like it's that, so that when we can put an article on for a statue for Rock Harbor,
Yeah,
it's,
yeah.
it's one of your goals.
These are small money,
Right.
small articles, and I think
We'll
they
put it
make
under
people feel
quality of
good.
life. Okay,
Thank you.
no, I got it. Public art, history, culture. Okay. All right. Wayfinding signs, love it. Okay, next, 3E, my eyes are getting blurry.
Please keep it
Yes, yeah, I agree.
I
Yet,
do have a
don't
latest.
you worry, Kevin, we
Well, I do
left
have
it.
the latest update from May
Ooh.
19th, which was after our last status. We did get a very nice thank you letter from MassDOT, but due to the overwhelming competitive pool of applicants, we were not selected, but encouraged to reapply.
Can
So
we take Chatham's money? That
Yeah,
they didn't
since they
want?
don't want their, since they don't want
it's
their
a different
rotary.
program.
Damn. Can we put a rotary there and get Chatham's money?
Yeah, right.
Is the scale of this project something that we need to wait for some state grant?
You do, yeah.
Okay.
And it also involves coordination with Eversource on some agreement for a
Right
certain
away.
amount of land.
Yeah, I understand that part, but really, it's just a road widening.
It's big. It's,
Okay.
it's what's referred to as a bottlenecking reduction program.
Okay.
Can I make a comment on this? And I don't know if it's a long-term thing, now that we've seen, we're gonna roll a lot of these goals over from year to year to get started, but I'd love to know if, it doesn't have to be discussed this meeting, but if the select board has any interest in looking at the Rotary from the Lost Dog, I hate to say Lost Dog, but to the Eastham Rotary, knowing that they're doing work, seeing about reducing that to 3 lanes and having sidewalks there. Yeah, it's gonna be a project, it's not really an annual project because like this other thing, it's gonna take 5 years, it's only gonna be done if the state does it. But if you never start these things, is what, and you don't get them at least spoken to, you're never gonna get it because, on a goals, because it's not a 1-year shot deal. And it can never be paid for by the town, there's no way we can afford it. And it has to be through this, whatever, the Mass DOT, of course, because it's a state highway.
One thing, Mr. Chair, on that comment is, I don't know, I mean, if the board wants to put it as a goal, but I think you have qualified staff that do look after that on at least a monthly basis. Rich, through the DPW directors, meets as a transportation committee that then recommends to the Metropolitan Planning Organization that then directs the TIP money. You're right, that's not on it, and it won't be for 7 years. But I think just mentioning this now, Kim, all you have to do is say to Rich, can you add this to the mix? Because it's never going to be accomplished in a 1 year.
Right, of course, that's all I'm trying to,
Yeah.
it reminded me
I
of.
think there are other ways to channel that
Okay.
request.
All right. We are 12 minutes, let's see if we can get through it. The next category we labeled as education. It used to be labeled as schools, but education is actually nicer. Obviously, we're still working on the new district agreement. Just as an update, we've got a meeting coming up.
Next week.
The regionalization, this from last year too, about the regionalization and efficiency study, it was completed. We've added this part about Orleans designees, representative continue to meet with the committee and regional partners to explore Orleans. This is basically for me, to say, you still want me to be working with other towns on this future of this as a priority, and that's a yes, right? So, so when we, not just the committee, but in general, that,
But expectation, if I could, Ms. Chair, on this is, as a minimum in those recommendations was the work on governance that was really lightly covered in the scope that I think the team wants to work on. I mean, not
We're
only
gonna
the
meet again soon,
superintendent,
too.
but, everybody. So I think we'll see progress on at least some elements of that.
right, because it's a project that goes on in the background. It's not something that's in our, but it is very critically important, and
Definitely needs to be in the goals.
it's on the, it's honestly like in the top of my list of the things that I work on, so, just needs to be somewhere.
But I guess it's to what end? I mean,
Results.
no,
Results.
no, but what are we looking for to happen? I mean, because is it just that we're part of it? Okay, well, congratulations, we're part of it, but they've given us no money and they've taken all our schools away and they've done all that. So I'm making fun of it,
Yes.
but it's to what
So
end?
our part is about taking the data from the study, which doesn't actually do anything. It's just creating a data point, which we wanted, and then it's getting all the players to the table, which we did, and then presenting some scenarios. It's impossible for us to have consensus on what happens next because we're not at that deciding point. The group is continuing to meet as a whole to talk about changes in the governance structure, which is what Kevin said. That is a very actionable, achievable item this year. The other part is like the recognition that both of the study, no matter which scenario was recommended, both seem to have a school in Orleans forever. And knowing that, in that we have a desire to potentially regionalize with our neighbors in some way, we continue to have conversations and explore that. Like, it takes 10 years for DESI to get us in the pipeline for a new school. So it's, okay, if we were gonna build that school, these are the hypothetical conversations. If we were gonna build it, where is it gonna go? Okay, well, Orleans has the most land, right? It's like, okay, well, who's coming with us? Is it Brewster and Eastham? It's continuing that, and knowing that at some point, we have to put our hat in the ring with DESI about building a school, even if we don't know at this point, can pinpoint what that's gonna be. And that's
But
really the.
underlying, the whole point of all of this work is to make paying for the education in our region financially sustainable.
And
That's the
Correct, and to be able to make a realistic and achievable plan about the maintenance related to the OES building in the short term, which is a 10-year window, and knowing that we're not throwing money away by doing repairs because the larger plan is a new school.
But
That,
So I think
yes.
that financial, but, so I'm just sort of saying, if it's to be sure that we remain, that providing schooling or something is financially viable for the town of Orleans and its residents, that's great, right? But, because I think it's just, otherwise it's like I'm attending.
I don't think.
No, it's more than that.
Yeah.
It's also, if you looked at the full results,
Yeah.
it's also better coordination among the different schools.
And that's fine.
In programming and actually the outcome for students.
And I'm
So-
all good with that.
Right.
I'm just saying if that should be specific as to what our goal is. If we're giving you the charge to do that, just because I think it's too
Don't know
open.
that the select board can be responsible for ensuring that it is financially viable, right? We can't. The reality of the situation is, that school puts together a budget, the budget comes to the town votes on the budget, right? So, the select board can certainly, work with the school system to, be more efficient and like financially sound, but we don't actually have a lot of control over helping them reduce their
No, I
costs
get-
or, you know what I
get-
mean? Like,
no,
we
I
don't
get that.
have
I'm
a.
just saying, I think, anytime you have a goal, it just seems like there should be something that we are trying to get to.
Yeah,
And not
benchmark.
just say,
Yeah,
and not
I
just say,
think
not
just
just
to
saying
be
to you,
able to-
please go to the meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
quality, ensure quality education through all grade levels for residents of Orleans, that's the goal, you know?
And that's fine.
And that may
That's fine. I just think
include
it's
a regional,
Right, it's just
partners,
important
yes.
for the residents of the town to understand the charge we've given to you.
Right.
Or whomever is attending, as you go through this is our goal. And how we get, and obviously how you get there and all this stuff, we don't know. I just think there needs to be something, the lens through which we are looking at this problem.
Got it.
If I can make a suggestion, we just finished
Education.
education. Our next meeting starts in 8 minutes upstairs. I think that this might be the point
Might be time.
at which we end this meeting.
I could suggest you might be able to blow through these environmental ones. I can give you.
Okay.
No, I got a lot of things to add on the environmental.
Well, if I may, just on 5A,
Okay?
because unless the board wants to bring forward an article for specialized energy code between now and town meeting in May, I think you can easily strike this one off your rules.
Only thought I have on that is not to achieve the designation, but at least make all municipal-led projects
Yes.
mimic this or
I think
replicate.
we've done that very well
We
with
have.
with policy,
But
right?
when we look at the facilities, we're going to have choices to make. And if we leave a goal to say, achieve climate leader qualifications, for municipal-led new construction renovation projects,
Efforts.
efforts, whatever. So, but I agree with you. Meph, I don't think we want to bring this back at a town meeting. That's not the right time,
No.
for at least 2 more years.
But in hearing that there's plenty of things we want to discuss about this, I think,
It was good, good progress.
calling it a day today.
Listen, last time we did, at least when I did, we took 3 meetings. We talked about it wouldn't take till September, so.
So,
Chair,
let's
at
go for
3:56, I know we adjourn.
Second?
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.